Despite the Friday the 13th game being an absolute technical mess, I did have a soft spot for it. The ideas were good and it was genuinely scary when you were playing as a survivor, and it offered a lot of cathartic violence and satisfaction playing as Jason. And well, I have the same feelings for the Texas Chainsaw game. It's a 3 vs 4 multiplayer game with 3 players playing as Leatherface and his family and the other 4 playing as the victims. Like many asymmetrical horror multiplayer games, the victim's objective is to escape and the family have to hunt them down. Texas Chainsaw gets it right straight away with a few different ways in which the victims can escape, but their first task is to escape the basement in which they have been battered and tortured in. The matches don't mess around getting started because as soon as you get out of the shackles, whoever is playing as Leatherface is patrolling the basement. Honestly, I think this part of a match is where the game is at its best. The smaller area leads to fast-paced chases and clutch stealth moments. The tension is just at its highest point here. The other 2 family members will be on the surface, securing the area, laying traps, and most importantly, feeding Grandpa. Once he's been fed, the other killers can get down into the basement and start hunting as well, so it's best to get out before that happens. Feeding Grandpa is one of the central mechanics for the family. You get blood from buckets around the map and injuring or killing victims. The more you feed him, the more he can send out a pulse to find survivors. Survivors can avoid this by staying still, and it's a bit silly. The game warns survivors with big letters saying stay still to avoid Grandpa's pulse. Seeing as the sound design is a pretty key part of the game, as audio clues can really help both sides out, so it's a good thing it's excellent all round, but why not use it for this one thing? Once the game enters the surface, it opens up but also slows down a bit. The large surface area can lead to both teams wandering aimlessly just looking for stuff. This might improve when people understand the game better, but as of now, once you get above ground, the game does lose a bit of steam. Annoyingly, the game doesn't really help players understand it. There's no tutorial, just a bunch of videos that do an average job of explaining the game's mechanics. Like I said earlier, there are a few different ways to escape for the victims. They can open the pressure valve exit, the electrified gate exit, the road exit, and the fuse box exit. Sadly, each of the game's 3 maps has these 4 objectives. There's no different exits on each one to add variety. RNG does change where the key items you need to escape spawn, so at least there's that. As a survivor, the game is pant fouling at points. You have to be quiet, crashing through doors and the light will show up on the family's screens, and it can make your blood run cold when you accidentally trigger a noisemaker, and then a few seconds later you hear the chainsaw getting louder and louder as it hones in on you. There are ways to defend yourself, like sneak attacks with certain items which will stun a family member for a while, and sometimes a grapple with an attacker, but they can never be killed, so these are the last resorts of last resorts. I do like the time limit mechanic. The survivors have been badly injured during the capture and you have to escape before they die of blood loss. Now, some people might hate that idea, but the time limit is pretty generous and it adds a layer of tension, as well as encouraging players to get on with the match and not just hide in a bin the whole time. Survivors and one of the killers can crouch in bushes. Now, anyone who's played a single player video game ever knows that being in a bush means you're invisible, even if your weapon is sticking out, but that's not the case here, so get out of the habit. Playing as the family, it can be really easy to see players trying to hide in the shrubbery. You're better off just trying to break line of sight, to be honest. The different survivors and killers have different abilities to help them out, like being able to instantly unlock a door, or for the killers being able to use super hearing to find survivors, and there are skill trees for each character. It's not anything that's going to dramatically alter the playstyle of your preferred killer or survivor, but the tweaks can help you hone your character a bit. I will say I preferred playing as the family. Maybe it's my own desire to become a serial killer, but I found their abilities to be more interesting to use, and the ways you can funnel the victims into traps and areas you want them to be in by destroying their crawl spaces and the like. It just feels like there's a bit more mechanical depth to the family, but it's early days so I could be wrong on that front. The differences between the family members' playstyles are also a lot more apparent than the victims. I mean, as the victims, you have to play the same way, keep quiet and sneak around, but with the family you get way more variety. Match quality was all over the place for me. Usually when I play the family, the other 2 members of my team seem more interested in looking at the pretty colours on the walls, but when I play the victims, the family team is like a well-oiled SAS unit who wipe us out in minutes. That may be because communication can really give you an advantage in this game, no matter which side you are playing, but playing with randoms you don't really get that. So if you get in this game with some friends, you will get on pretty well, I reckon. Also, in all the matches I've played in this game, I still haven't been able to play as Clit in Leatherface. You can request in lobbies to play as a certain character, but the people who have that one selected have to agree to it. The matchmaking system has ballsed up many times for me. There would always be 3 family members and 3 victims, and the last slot would never be filled, and everyone would get booted back to the menu after the timer counted down. Overall, I can recommend the game if you have Game Pass, but for 35 quid, the game gets old pretty quick, with only 3 maps which really feel quite similar, and 1 game mode, plus there's nothing to work towards really other than improving your characters. There's a good core here for sure, but the legs aren't long enough for the price, but get some friends together with Game Pass and you can have a good few hours of fun.
I'm such a mess, I'm lost, I'm no good at this.